extremely well. As we can see here, Hunterace is going to respect it with a ban.
Hunterace, we can't take him down on our own. We need Professor to help us. Teacher, this guy's cheating. He's beating us all the time.
It's just one. It's going to be Hunterace on that even Warlock. JustSaiyan on the odd rogue. I'd say already JustSaiyan's off to a pretty good start getting this Q.
Yep, we've seen the rogue seems to just be getting better and better against even lock as players work out more and more about the matchup. And the Tempo Storm lineup is playing Myras, so they do get that final push. Even if things go wrong, they get like one last roll of the dice, draw the rest of their deck, try and get some damage in. But Hunterace has an okay starting hand. Swamp Ooze very good against the rogue. It's the tempo-based deck. It takes 2 mana away from them effectively, which just can buy you that little bit of time to get into the game. Obviously, Hellfire very important too. As is out of the other 2 cards, Sunfury Protector, quite often used just to buy yourself health, as there's only really the Vile Spine that the rogue can use. Other than that, it's got to do the damage the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, the Acidic Swamp Ooze is very strong, as not only does it get rid of that very strong dagger coming out from JustSaiyan side in the odd rogue, but it also contests Vicious Fledgling and Henchclan Thug if they play it. It kind of reforces Saiyan to commit to a dagger turn, and that's not something that Saiyan wants to be doing with 3 mana. He wants to be making a proactive play, not a reactive play. As we can see here, Hunterace kept the Hellfire and the Twilight Drake. It's not enough just to have some kind of removal. You also need to make sure that you have that board pressure and board tension that gets you there in the long run. If you just kept the Hellfire and didn't have a minion to follow it up with, then he's not really accomplishing anything in this matchup.
Saying keeping that cold blood, relying on picking up the 1-drop to make sure, because one of the tools you have is the Warlock does nothing until about turn 4, 3 with a coin, of course. And so if you can get in 10 extra damage just by keeping that cold blood, you are well on the way to getting it done. Hunterace, even a cheeky tap there. Managing how many taps you think you can afford is massive in this. You get 1 of that health back if you can taunt up our Twilight Drake before you start. But already Hunterace facing down immense pressure just from 1 turn, 1 minion and 1 spell.
Yeah, and that's why you saw JustSaiyan keep that Cold Blood. It's one of the strongest cards in the control matchups because it allows to make something that shouldn't be a threat into one of the most powerful threats in the deck. Especially this early on in the game, just being able to put a Cold Blood onto a Firefly, a Dire Maul, just any 1-drop makes it so powerful. And originally, Saiyan didn't really have that strong of a turn. He would just have to dagger and swing face. Hunterace is going to try to contest the Firefly in order to force Saiyan to dagger up, which is actually fine for Saiyan. He was just going to dagger up anyways. Yeah,
not daggering as 1-2 has really messed with Hunterace's plans here. Worth noting that Hunterace did have an option to just coin out Sunfury on 1, just to challenge the board a little bit there. But then the dagger would have come, he would have blown it up. But now he is taking a lot of damage and already gonna have to get very creative. He's got the cards to do it, but most of them cost him even more health or time, and he doesn't have much health and very little time right now.
And Saiyan's really thinking on whether he wants to commit this Ardent Squire right now. I'm trying to think of the merits for not committing onto it. It's most likely to enable some kind of combo effect next turn.
So SI7 next turn, Vile Spine on 6, but also if it's not there until turn 4, it's very hard for Hunterace to deal it. If Hunterace is going to Hellfire this turn, it would take away the Divine Shield, for instance, and then maybe you can pick it off with a Defile and you never get to Fungal Mancer it.
Yeah, but you do run the risk of something like potentially not even seeing a Hellfire. If it's something like this Spellbreaker, it's not a little awkward, would rather have that shield in order to push in. But you're right, there's a lot of merits for holding on to this Argent Squire, and it makes a lot of sense. You can go ahead and if you pick up a Vile Spine, you have that for that turn 6 play. If you find, say, an Edwin Van Cleef or a SI7 agent, and then gives you follow-up to the next turn. And I believe there was some kind of, you know, maybe some potential Defile-esque play, especially with an Acidic. I don't think there was actually.
No, but there might be Defile play over 2 turns. Exactly. Hellfire 1 turn, then Defile the next is a thing. And Saiyan whiffing on all of his 3-drops is going to give Hunterace the tempo and the board and attacker's advantage and all that good stuff we talk about. And it's got to, something Saiyan's got to be careful about. I know I keep on about that image from Italy, but he's got to be careful of falling into the mindset of I can't beat this guy. It's just another Hearthstone player. It just happens to be a very good one. But Saiyan is also a very good one. And if things do go against him, he's just got to take that as a normal Hearthstone game against a normal player. It happens all the time. You know, there's no curse. Hunterace doesn't draw better than anybody else, usually, unless he gets a Chittering Tunneler.
Yeah, that was a bit absurd, but yeah, you're exactly right. You can't have that mentality of this person's unbeatable. I think that's, you know, what happens a lot of the times when someone who's not necessarily a professional player in the scene goes up against one of these professional players. Is they sit there and think, oh, it's JustSaiyan, or it's Muzzy, or it's Hunterace.
It's Dr. J.
It's Dr. J. Yeah, there you go. I like that. I was setting you up for that one, Lorinda. But they get this image that this person is on a higher pedestal,
yeah,
and they can't beat them, when in reality, you know, if your skills are as strong as theirs, or if their skills are comparable, you have that chance to do so.
And it's why a lot of these players, G, one of the other top 8 players we've mentioned, went 1-4 in their first event, but that means they sat there and got used to that feeling.
Yes.
You don't drop at 1-2 or whatever like a lot of the pros might when they realize the top 16 might be out of the way, or 1-3. You play it out, you get used to playing against these big names, and then lo and behold, next time around you feel comfortable, you go top 8.
I mean, that's all it takes sometimes, is you get that practice in, you start to get that feel for the tournament environment, and you start to say, hey, look, I can do it as well. And that we've seen, you know, like you said, G, a player in our top 8 right now, has done that.
Yeah,
and
just get that.
You can only go up from here.
Probably play the side event as well, I don't know, but that's what a lot of these players do to get more experience. Their first Dreamhack, day 2 side event, a lot of the pros enter it mainly because they've got nothing else to do. There's usually a decent prize pool, or a decent prize at least anyway, for playing in that. So the people who come for casual Hearthstone get to rub shoulders with the pros 2 days running.
Hearthstone players are very adamant on playing a lot of Hearthstone. That is a fact.
Well, Saiyan's decision to keep this Argent squad, look how it's worked out for him here.
It has paid off very much. He's allowed to combo that Vile Spine. Let's say he didn't have that Dire Maul, he wouldn't have been able to Vile Spine that minion, allowing him to kind of try and get back on the board. He's then going to have this beautiful Fungomancer play on the following turn, being able to re-dagger to clean up this Acidic Swamp Ooze. It's looking pretty strong from JustSaiyan's point of view right now.
Yeah, not much more healing available in the short term for Hunterace, and Gul'dan seems a million miles away from where he's sat right now.
And coming into this tournament, I wasn't a large fan of Odd Rogue. I felt as if Odd Rogue, you know, it was a solid deck, but you'd have to get rid of Quest Rogue when you want to play it. And I thought Quest Rogue was such a powerful deck that it's very hard to sacrifice it. But we've seen a lot of players doing very well with it because it does have decent matchups against Warlock. It is very strong in how it can play against Druid, and it's an all-around just solidly good deck.
Yeah, I think you're right not to expect much, because I would be surprised if many people predicted how much Evenlock would be at this tournament. It has been everywhere.
I thought Evenlock was going to be very popular.
Yeah?
I did.
Okay.
I thought a lot of players were worried about how Zulok was going to perform because during the European playoffs, a lot of players brought this Subject 9 Hunter and Odd Warrior and decks like that just to prey on players bringing Zulok.
Right.
So if you're worried that Zulok's going to be accounted for, why not bring even Warlock where you're favorable against Zoo, you still have those decent matchups against Druid, but you don't auto-fold to something like an Odd Warrior.
Yeah, that's made a lot of sense. We've seen a lot of Zoo in the first 2 days, and now the Zoo is starting to filter out. There's Impact, and that's about it. Left with some Zoo lying around, I think, now. But we do have a lot of these even Warlocks left, and they're just powering through the field.
Yeah, it does have a strong Defile play now that got picked up. You can go ahead and make this trade here, Defile off, play the Hooked Reaver, hope that there's really no clean way to answer this Hooked Reaver right now. If there was something like another Vile Spine and a potential 3-drop, this game would be over. That doesn't quite do enough just yet.
Yeah, just yet being maybe the operative phase there, though. There's a lot can happen on this turn now.
And another question for Saiyan is, does he opt to take this 7 damage, put himself down to 10 health in order to preserve something like a deckhand?
It's difficult because if Hunterace then sticks any other minion for the rest of the game, especially with like Hellfires in the deck, which is one of his, it's going to put him super low, but one of his stabilization mechanisms, if he can find a way to taunt as well, Saiyan could end up in a lot of trouble himself. But on the other hand, I don't see him, if he loses the board again, I don't see him winning the game anyway. So maybe he can just afford to eat this 7 damage for science.
That is true, but you also have to factor in that there is still a second Defile left in the deck, and maybe leaving that deckhand around is a viability. So I wouldn't, a liability, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the deckhand go in.
Well, it can't attack face.
That's a very true point. Now that is the reason the deckhand goes in. But looks like Saiyan's just going to go ahead for a re-dagger. Just wants to make sure he has his dagger up.
But it can attack face next turn.
That is true. That is very true. It's just that question of whether you want to take that 7 damage. I know it right now it doesn't seem that bad, but let's say there were some potential line of play where Hunterace could.
Yeah, well, you can't tank it if he drops Dr. Boom now. Sorry, Dr. Boom. Sorry, the Lich King. It's just a big meta-defining card like Dr. Boom was. Yeah, the Lich King. If he drops that now, suddenly you can't face tank it again because you're dead to Hellfire. That's your one face tank for the game done.
That is true. Fortunately for Saiyan, there is no Dr. Boom. There's no Lich King in the hand right now. They might as well be the same card. They're both pretty strong.
Has Hunterace even got a way out here?
Trying to think.
I mean, he doesn't know there's a deckhand, so he's got to play
there
as
is
if
the
there's
second
not.
Hooked Reaver. Could life tap into that. Force.
You hate tapping on 8 mana.
You'd still be dead to the second Hooked Reaver with the deckhand in hand, but maybe Hunterace feels as if that's one of his only outs. Could also just potentially go for this Hellfire and use the youthful...
The Mushroom Man.
Shroom Brewer in order to... I'm going to say youthful Brewmaster. The Shroom Brewmaster. The Shroom Brewer in order to heal
Go on,
up.
you can get there with this, Jay.
I was trying, Lorinda. I was really trying, and JustSaiyan had plenty of damage to end up that game. And he's going to be up 1-0 against his arch nemesis, Hunterace.
He is, and he won't be resting back. He's had so many favourite positions have accidents against Hunterace. But taking that 1-0 lead will be a nerve settler. I think that Saiyan, until maybe he started casting sort of a year ago maybe, suffered from nerves more than he showed.
I think so
I felt
as well.
that when you watched him on stream and then you watched him in tournaments, his play used to be a little bit less good in tournaments than on streams. Like when he got cast rather than just on the floor.
I can definitely see that. You know, Saiyan is a man of many talents. He has been on the casting desk before, has, you know, just dabbled in a lot of different things like streaming, the competitive play, and then just some other stuff like that. And it really builds, you know, an all-around kind of nature about you where you get less nervous up there. You know, you understand kind of the impact of what the game is currently about. Whereas some of these players, you know, they don't necessarily have that versatility that JustSaiyan provides. I mean, Hunterace is a very, very strong player. Nobody can take that away from him. But, you know, I think he's finally getting used to that limelight as well.
He was nervous for the longest time. Like when he won one, because he lost the first 2 finals he played, because, you know, rubbish, only getting to the final.
I know, right?
And then his first win, he was super nervous, made a few mistakes himself, and I thought, oh, he'll be settled down. Then Hunterace at Italy was still a little bit nervous, because every time he does something new, it's just a record. So each time he's kind of treading new ground, it's like it's almost never comfortable. Winning 3 tour stops in a season would be absolutely ridiculous, of course. But Saiyan made a recommitment to Hearthstone back in January. He tweeted out that maybe he hadn't been as committed as he wanted to be, refunded some subs for not streaming enough, and said, look, I'm going to really throw myself into this year. And he has made good on that promise. If it wasn't for the guy you see above him right now, Saiyan we'd be talking about him. What an amazing year, just saying.
I think if it wasn't for his amazing teammates and the guy he's currently playing against, it would be the JustSaiyan show. Yeah,
and he has absolute. I mean, the number of points he's got, I haven't got it in front of me, but he has racked up those HCT points. He was the anchor for the United States in HGG, which means he got the most points in that qualifying season. And overall is just getting points all over the place, and top 8s and top 4s all over the place. He just happens to keep running into this man, who he looks to have a little bit on the ropes here, with yet again a 5-2 on turn 2.
Yeah, it's looking very desperate from Hunterace's side. You really don't want to naturalize this early on, but I think Hunterace is going to have to commit to the naturalize just to clean up that 5-2 Firefly. It's not something you really want to do, but Saiyan's going to be kind of happy to see that the naturalize does come out. It means that there is no Spellstone. And Saiyan's going to be able to draw a couple cards if you find something like a Vicious Fledgling in order to put that onto the board.
Cold Blood number 2, and he knows there's no Spellstone. It's got to be super tempting.
I think it does as well. I think he's going to go for it. He says, you know what, if you had to naturalize the first one, go ahead and deal with the second one.
It's not quite so bad as naturalizing against, say, a tempo mage, because the rogue still needs a few turns to actually utilize all the mana to get all the cards on the board, whereas the tempo mage just launches it in your face and it hurts.
Yeah, they just say, oh, thank you for giving me more burn. I really need that right now.
But the rogue does need to still set up boards, and you've got things like spreading plagues to deal with those boards and so on. And now he has a spellstone.
The question is, can he afford to coin that out right now?
Does he
His hand's
need
a little
to?
awkward. I don't think he needs to. I think he can kind of, suffice for this turn. He also could potentially wait for maybe a Starfall onto a wider board state if Saiyan were to go for that. But Hunterace may feel, you know what? I don't need to take this damage now. As long as I'm at a high life total, I can win this game.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality of a lot of players in the select matchups, is they make these very awkward plays that may seem awkward in the moment, but they want to reserve as much life as possible because it ultimately gives them more turns in the long run.
It's interesting watching the difference between beginning players, then good players, and then amazing players. So when you're beginning, you just kill everything you see, and then you learn that doesn't work because you run out of cards and you die. And then so when you're getting good, you sort of go, okay, well, I'm not going to kill everything I see. And then people start hitting you too hard and you die and you've still got removal. And then you get some of the better players. Hunterace kills the first thing he sees and then chooses to leave the second because the situation is slightly different, and he's assessed that the second one isn't as much of a...
Lorinda, this phenomenon is called the face-to-board index.
The face-to-board index? How does that work?
It's kind of like the pH scale.
Mm-hmm.
The further the pH scale goes, the more alkaline, the more basic a material is.
So does
I am
this
a
go
doctor,
from sugar
you
to salt?
trust me.
Yeah, I do trust you.
So the way it goes is the more you worry about the board, the worse off you are. But the more you worry about the face, the better off you are. Because think about it.
I'm thinking very hard
you know
right
what the
now.
best control deck is? You know the world's best control deck. You know what it was?
Dusting your collection.
No, Face Hunter.
Face Hunter was the best controlled
deck in the world. You want to know why?
because it was very high on the face-to-board index.
It was very high on the face-to-board index scale. But the reason it was the best control deck is because you know how a control player aims to make their opponent not play the game?
Yeah.
If your opponent's dead, they can't play the game.
Ah.
Think about it that way. Face-to-board index.
Yeah, I shall note that down now.
Yeah, take a note on that one, Lorinda.
In. How do you spell index?
I'm not sure.
Okay. EPF. Right. So Hunterace did actually just clear up the first two minions, again going further than just noob level of killing things, going all the way around to the face-to-board index, and that's left him in this position where he's on a decent health total, but Saiyan's hand size is going to become relevant now. He's got 6 mana, then obviously 7, because that's how crystals work. Going to be able to do a lot of stuff in these next 2 turns.
And Hunterace is actually running out of plays to make. I think he's navigated these turns very well in order to make sure he doesn't take excessive amounts of damage. If, he had left that Firefly up for potentially one more turn, he would be essentially 5 less health. And I think right now he's trying to, navigate this as best he can. But his hand is looking very awkward. He doesn't have, that ramp to get up to something like an Ultimate Infestation. Saiyan's going to be playing around that Spreading Plague as much as possible. He does have refill since he had to naturalize twice. And this is looking pretty grim for Hunterace right now.
So Hunterace does have Spreading Plague, which again, Saiyan's tiptoeing around pretty carefully, and branching paths maybe the turn after.
But even with Spreading Plague right now, Saiyan just has the potential to go Deckhand, Vile Spine, kill off both of them, and then push the Vicious Fledgling face. Because that dagger right now is a 4-1.
Might see a Starfall in its place.
But if you do that, you're dead to Deckhand SI, you're dead to Leroy, you're dead to a lot of different things.
Yep, and this is where Hunterace has excelled through the year in terms of working out which things are more likely to kill me here.
There's also,
they sound like they're all about equal, but he'll work out what's in the hand and do what he thinks is okay.
Yeah, there's also another potential line of play where Hunterace decides to go for Wild Growth to try and ramp up.
Yep.
And then plays the Branching Paths for double armor in order to try and stay alive as long as possible.
That also gives him a chance for bigger Spreading Plague, forces Saiyan to commit to board.
Yes.
I like it. Okay.
I like this play a lot. I think it's definitely the play, but I guess Hunterace can be thinking whether he wants that hero power or he wants this Wild Growth.
He suddenly realized, do I even need this mana next turn?
You're not really ramping to anything.
Maybe next turn I gain another 1 health and use the Wild Growth next turn.
But I do like the ramp just in case there were to be pickup of, say another
even a Nourish in the next couple of turns.
Exactly.
There'll be things in there where next turn or the turn after, more to the point, like 9 mana is swipe plus Starfall, or how do you get to 9 mana when you're getting smashed in the face from one of these Flappy Birds?
Like I said, face to board index. Saiyan is going face. Hunterace is trying to control the board. Who's winning right now?
It's 1-0 to Saiyan.
My point exactly.
Wow.
Face to board index.
So on the other end of that scale, if you play Control Warrior Mirrors all day, are you just bored?
Yes.
Bored to your face.
Control Warrior is the worst control deck.
Because it's got nothing to do with the face, and you're bored. There is the ultimate infestation, and Hunterace readjusts in his seat. How do I get to this one?
And that's where I think casting that Wild Growth the turn before will come in handy. It's very risky to go for the spreading plague here, because Hunterace is really forcing Saiyan to say, hey, look, I know you're holding onto 1-drops right now. I want you to play these. That way, this spreading plague does something.
Hunterace was involved in that marathon match last night against Hot Meow. Finished incredibly late, and it wasn't just the length of the match at the end of a long day. It was the complexity of that match. You were explaining to me what Hot Meowth had been telling you about the game, and it sounded like every card in Hearthstone was played like 3 times each.
It was a game 4 Odd Warrior versus Dead Man's Hand Warrior matchup, where Hunterace Chittering Tunneler into a Dead Man's Hand, and then Dead Man's handed an Azalina in order to Azalina to take Hot Meowth's Dead Man's Hand.
And then he's just a Dead Man's Warrior with better cards.
And then he's a Dead Man's Hand Warrior with better cards, and then he took it to the turn timer.
Just like 60 turns or something, I think.
It's something ridiculous.
And then you can see on who has the most armor and health total, and Hunterace won on tie breaks in the top 16. Who wins on tie breakers when you've already finished the Swiss?
And right now, this is showing you the power of Twig of the World Tree. Hunterace finally cracked it and now has this board state, and there is really nothing that Saiyan can do.
Despite having been given 4 extra cards over the course of this game, or 2 extra because you lose one when he gets killed.
This game would have been much different if Hunterace had taken that 1 extra Firefly damage.
Yeah.
Little plays like that separate people from being the best in the world.
Yep, I'm going to start taking more damage for sure. That's what you mean, right? Face to board index.
Face to board index.
It's something I'm never going to forget. And Saiyan's position in the space of 1 turn, thanks to having 20 mana in a turn from Hunterace, which is a lot of mana, has made a huge difference. Swing turns in Hearthstone, something we talked about a lot this week. Absolutely gigantic these days, and Saiyan's trying to set up his own swing turn, but mind control tech is waiting in the weeds.
That's something, you know, Saiyan didn't want to play into, but he is forced to at this moment. If he does not make this play, he can't clear out the majority of the board. There is potential for Saiyan to try and get through this storm right now and hopefully, you know, make sure Hunterace has like that very awkward hand where Hunterace really doesn't have defensive resources. But
He's
it's
still
really
got
hard
Myra's,
to do
there's a
against
Leroy
Druid.
in there.
Yes, there's still a lot.
Edwin, the non-pirate.
Wasn't the greatest of takes, but wasn't the worst. Very, you know, in the middle of the pack. I think any of those takes were honestly fine from Hunterace's side. I don't think he really minded
they're pretty
too
much the same. Don't want the SI, and then you're good.
Yeah, I think the only thing was the SI that you really didn't want.
You do now have to deal with the Thug, which is a nuisance.
Yeah, the Hench Clan Thug's a little bad, but you can afford to trade in that Arcane Tyrant. I think Hunterace is just evaluating. Right now he's in a very favorable position. How does he want to capitalize on this? Looks like he's going to go for gaining attack. I wouldn't be surprised to gain attack and gain armor. Take maybe even 2 value trades. And not even worry about this Hench Clan Thug.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. Not even drawing, just gaining armor. Might as well. That 1 armor could make the difference.
In all card games, when the time is right, I think the top players do like to have decks that give them choices. And this Tog Druid gives you a lot of choices. They're very hard choices. He said himself after he lost a really close match in playoffs to a Warrior deck, you know, how hard this deck was. But he also just appreciates the fact that he's in control more because he's got more choice.
Yeah, it's something you really want from certain decks. It's very powerful to have so many different kind of game plans. We see Saiyan there, just going to go ahead and opt for that Myra's. I think he was looking for one of the Giggling Adventures to try and go wide onto the board, hope there's no second MC tech, and push this damage phase. I think that's how he wins this game. He could think about trading into the Mind Control tech. Is a bit weak to swipe. I think this has to go face. I think you just have to accept that, you know, Hunterace hands has to be awkward, and the way you win is by pushing it face.
Yeah, there's a lot of removal gone from Hunterace's hand over the last few turns. But he has just played a UI. You've got, I think nearly all those cards came from that, so very little read on what's going on.
And here comes another Ultimate Infestation.
Another 5 armor, another board swing. Another life for Hunterace.
And it was looking very good from Saiyan for the start, but Hunterace just navigated this perfectly, making sure that he did not take too much damage in the early game. And now Saiyan is struggling a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest Myra's either. I mean, he needed Leroy for the tempo that it gains. I know it's not tempo, but the finishing blow, whatever you want to call it. And now, because Hunterace has this massive board, he is just going to be able to pick off the pieces of what Saiyan tries to do. And with Ferocious Howl in hand, any thoughts of a cheeky win from JustSaiyan seem to be out the window?
I think it's pretty far out the window. I think
both already.
Saiyan's just going to die in fatigue at this point, and there's not much he can really do about it. And he can't play these one-drops because they enable Spreading Plague and make them better. But if he's not playing the one-drops, he's not putting minions on the board, and he's losing the game anyways. It's definitely a rough
Plague,
call.
how we love you.
That card used to be 5 mana, Lorinda.
Does it make any difference?
5 mana.
I mean, it does. It comes down a turn later, but your opponent has more minions then.
Ooh. Maybe it was a buff. Think about that one.
Wow. Hang on.
Let me think about this one real quick.
I'm a very logical person. Tend to miss a few steps out of the logic here and there, but whatever.
Leave Hunterace went for this, not using the Ferocious Howl. Wants to go ahead and fit in that hero power to clean up.
Yeah, he's not dead next turn, so he gets to use the Ferocious Howl and another hero power next turn. It's just a way of maximizing how much armor he gains over the 2 turns.
And Saiyan does have Captain Greenskin. But Captain Greenskin only clears up one of these, and a board has to stick. And Hunterace is not going to let any kind of board stick.
What sort of captain is the guy? He's like, go and kill that beetle. Great.
He's a great captain.
Is he? Oh, you like... Yeah, you're used to him. He's won you lots of things.
He is a very powerful card that I've played in a lot of decks, and to this day, legends tell of a Pirate Warrior build that is almost like a Unicorn Priest.
No.
Captain Greenskin leads the charge.
Wow.
It's a beautiful
So he was
story.
basically the first Death Knight.
Yes, Captain Greenskin was the first Death Knight. It actually was going to be a Death Knight card, but they said, you know what? Nah.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, let's save that for
We'll never sell those portraits. He's not a looker, is Greenskin.
He's beautiful in his own way.
He is. He gives you more damage, more board to face index.
More. See, Lorinda, you are a very fast student.
I am indeed, yeah. I work very hard
Trust
on
me,
that.
I'm a doctor.
Have you like got proof of this? And Saiyan finally gives up the discussion for us, thankfully, and we're going to get into game number 3. It's 1 apiece in this quarter-final. We're down to 2 decks each. Let's have a look what we've got. Saiyan has his own token druid.
Saiyan has his own token
even lock.
druid and his own even lock. We'll say that, you know, even lock is fairly strong against this Togwaggle druid. I also think that token druid is also strong against Togwaggle druid. I think either of those Qs might be fine. It depends on what Saiyan feels the stats show. Does he think that token druid is more favorable, or would he rather have, you know, the token druid to get into that odd warrior, or maybe the even lock to get into that odd warrior? It's gonna really depend on what Saiyan really wants to do. It depends on how he perceives the matchups, because I think either of these matchups can go either way.
This odd warrior, just looking at Hunterace's decks, just to cut you slightly short there, does have a whirlwind.
Yes, I think that's one of the most important tech choices when factoring in how Saiyan wants to take these next couple of Qs, is just because that whirlwind tech inside of the odd warrior is going to make that matchup against Saiyan's token druid so much more favorable. Just that one card.
Just one card, because the game goes so long.
You're going to most likely see that card. I mean, a lot of lists I've seen have actually been playing 2 whirlwinds just to really guarantee they have it against that matchup.
Yeah, that's what made me sort of snatch the deck list from your hands and start staring at it. See how many you've got.
I was looking at Hunterace's deck list like, what am I going to play on ladder tonight? And you just kind of took it from me.
Yeah, you can't play Hunterace's deck list on ladder.
Why not?
Because only Hunterace understands them. And Orange, they brought the same lineup, and Orange also scythed his way through the Swiss, unfortunately getting knocked out in the top 16. But that lineup from the Dusky Boys, as always, proving very, very powerful.
The Dusky Boys. A very strong practice group. It really
what do you
is.
call your practice group then? Jay and Edwin?
What do I call my practice group?
Board to face index?
We'll go with that. Board to face index is the name of my practice group. No, we're just the best in the world.
Yeah?
Sometimes.
Sometimes best in the world.
We would be if it wasn't for those meddling kids.
Yeah, exactly right.
Just an episode of Scooby-Doo. For the meddling kids.
You're from America, you probably don't know where Norway is.
Oh, I've been to Norway. It was nice.
Yeah?
Went to the Oslo.
Yeah, it's nice. Oslo's good.
Very nice.
Tour stop coming up there soon.
Yeah.
GigaCon. Probably get fired for that.
But as for this game, you see that Hunterace does have some of the tools he needs. Right now, he doesn't have that Naturalize, though. Naturalize is one of the most important cards in this matchup because it will allow Hunterace to answer what he perceives to be as a Mountain Giant in the hand of JustSaiyan. You kind of have to expect that your opponent has Mountain Giant in the hand. He does have a couple more draws for it, and right now we see that Saiyan doesn't necessarily have that Mountain Giant, but he's going to keep life tapping to look for it because that is the most important card. If that card connects face, it spells pretty badly for the Druid.
I can spell pretty badly.
Spell it.
They're just looking at my notes. It's all spelled pretty badly. Saiyan with that Defile in hand is also pretty bad news.
Yeah, Saiyan doesn't quite have that.
Oh, sorry, no, it's not the token Druid. I'm losing the plot here. I was completely distracted for a second there.
Well, it is bad for Saiyan right now because that card does not get much value in this matchup. He doesn't quite have that pressure hand that he's really looking for. He really needs to find that Giant. At most, he can go ahead and maybe play out the Twilight Drake to try and surmount some kind of pressure. I mean, I think Twilight Drake is a lot of pressure in and of itself, but it's no Mountain Giant. It doesn't really force its agenda.
Yeah, and he's got to plan so much ahead here. We've seen people save their Giants, even if they have them, until after they've Geisted anyway in this matchup. So the Naturalizers are gone. But then you end up hitting them so late with your Giant that it's no longer quite as big a threat because they start throwing taunts and things in the way.
I'm curious if Saiyan is just doing this to psych out or if he actually wants to commit to making that play. And I think that's just a sign of the reason he did this here, and it looks a little strange because it didn't get any value, is that he wants to make sure he can life tap every turn.
Yep.
He needs to play it now because next turn is committed to Twilight Drake. And then the turn after that, he wants to be able to life tap and play a 4-drop. And if that Defile is in his hand, he will burn a card.
Yeah, I mean, and it does nothing at all here.
Yes, it does not. It does not do much in this matchup whatsoever.
It does nothing because he's used it.
You were also right about that, Lorinda.
I'm always
did nothing
right,
because he used
even when I'm wrong, which is often. Hunterace getting the twig and just going to commence the process of setting up that 20 mana turn that we've seen already.
And right now you see just using the Defile is going to allow Saiyan to tap here. Needs to be fitting in those life taps each turn to find, you know, Gul'dan, to find Mountain Giants. Oh, it actually looks like he's opting not to tap whatsoever. I'm a little curious about that.
Wonder if he's trying to make Hunterace think he's drawn the giant already, so that these don't get naturalized.
I think that's pretty far-fetched, but
okay.
It's something to think about. I'm a little curious as to Saiyan not committing to that lifetime. Maybe he feels as if with the twig of the World Tree online, he's going to keep taking that repetitive damage. And if he lowers himself enough, he kind of makes himself susceptible to some kind of, you know...
I mean, naturalized does hurt you. If your hand gets too big, it hurts you. Anyway, you just start overdrawing. He hadn't got cooled down at the time. He hasn't drawn a giant. And so you don't want to get naturalized. So if you get too many cards... after your, his board is strong enough, he doesn't necessarily need a giant, he just wants one. And yeah, if you get too many cards, you can't dump your hand when you do get naturalized, and then bad things happen.
You do have to be careful with that life tap. It is a very powerful tool, but sometimes if you abuse that tool too much, it does come back to bite you.
Yeah, you don't want to be bitten by life tap. As Hunterace just dumped his hand in eager anticipation of the UI coming up in a few turns' time.
He's trying to get to this ultimate infestation as quickly as possible. He also has a great branching paths play on the following turn. For Saiyan right now, the most he can really do is play out this Dread Inferno, take 2 trades. But that's very susceptible to a lot of damage from Hunterace on the other side.
Interesting to me, the evolution of what Hunterace likes playing. So he just played full normal Mali Druid for the longest time, and then messed around and threw Azalina into it. So he's playing Mali Druid with Azalinas, and everyone's saying, why aren't you playing Togwaggle? He's like, I don't need it. The Azalina's just there for extra fuel against control. And then he eventually sort of gave into the weight of people playing the hybrid version, threw Togwaggle in there as well. Now he's just decided he doesn't need the Malagos anymore. He just likes this version better, just full on Togwaggle. So adapting to what he likes and also to the meta as he goes.
And I think that's mostly because when you make those calls, you're saying in a last hero standing format, you want this deck to do something very specific in particular. And Hunterace may have felt as if Malagos Druid, although it's a very good ladder deck, it's not necessarily the best in tournament play, because in last hero standing, a lot of players are going to opt to queue up that Odd Warrior as kind of a counter pick. And if they take that as the counter pick, Malagos Druid has an abysmal matchup with that, as it can't deal the excessive damage that it needs to, whereas an Azalina Togwaggle Druid does the same against aggressive decks that Malagos Druid would, but doesn't necessarily lose that specific matchup.
And if you were going to argue somehow, and I'd argue back, but if you were going to argue that Hunterace for some reason isn't the best player in the world, the small gap in his armor is the fact that he hasn't had an amazing last hero result, I don't believe. He certainly hasn't had an amazing Dreamhack result.
Yeah, I think Dreamhack's the one thing eluding him right now for that amazing result. He's a very strong Conquest player, but Conquest and Last Hero Standing are not the same format.
Yeah, and I don't believe either of his wins were Last Hero. I could be wrong there. There's been a couple of other Last Hero events. But certainly at Dreamhacks, he's been very 6-3 sort of results. I think he had a sneaky top 16. The one that he didn't get top 4 in.
The one that
top
got
2,
away.
yeah.
He thinks about it every night.
And it is a thing, as we are seeing the pressure going insane here with UI in hand here. It is a thing that some players take a while to adjust Last Hero Standing. Again, I'm not saying he does or he doesn't, but just in terms of, it's probably just where the numbers have fallen, the ones he's won. But it is a while to get used to. Some players say they take a year. Sidonia was one who, first 2 or 3 Last Hero Standing tournaments he played didn't go his way at all. And it was partly because it was a different format.
It makes sense. And right now, Hunterace is going to be thinking, you know, how does he kind of capitalize on using this twig? Could opt to draw some cards, could opt to Starfall to clear off that hooked Reaver, and then use the ultimate infestation for the follow-up. A couple different lines of play here.
That turn did not go well for him, though. It went really well for Saiyan.
No, yeah, I think that was a turning point for Saiyan right now. If he can weather through what this Twig of the World Tree can do and live to that Gul'dan, I think it might be smooth sailing from Saiyan at that point, because there isn't that potential burst damage like the Malagos Druid. So Hunterace was trying to capitalize on getting that Twig done as quickly as possible. And it's done now, but he doesn't have that lethal follow-up that he was trying to set up. the combination of the Hooked Reaver stopping the attack phase, and the Spellstone healing him back up.
Yeah, the healing, otherwise
some kind
he
of
was just
ultimate
dead.
devastation. Exactly.
And just going for the Tog.
He's just going to take cards from Saiyan's deck.
I want your cards. I want you to waste 5 mana next turn.
I don't blame him. What if he finds something like Mountain Giants? He takes that pressure away from Saiyan.
What's he getting?
Got a Lich King. Got a Hooked Reaver. Not the most impactful of draws.
He's on 16.
There's some really funny times where you play Togwaggle and neither player wants to commit 5 mana to playing the King's Ransom card, because that's basically forfeiting over.
Yeah, you try and get the board so you can spend the time to play it and make your opponent not have time to play it back.
And so sometimes you have these weird game states where both players say, you know what, I'll just play with your deck.
Yeah, it happened early today in the first game of the day when I was casting with Firebat. We just had a game that went on forever with both players with King's Ransom in their hand and quite happily drawing from each other's deck.
I mean, why not?
I mean, why not?
I've seen some games
Sounds like a tavern brawl.
I've seen some games where where an Odd Rogue couldn't really do much, and I believe King Togwaggle was played and the Druid became the Odd Rogue and just beat the Druid.
Because it does, of course, need some incredibly complicated things, and we talk about how that Chittering Tunneler last night made all that difference, but in many players' hands, it wouldn't have made a difference. Yeah. You've got to be willing to play with every card in the whole of Hearthstone when you start as leading Elise packs. You've got to know how they intended to beat you and how they can now beat you with your deck and how you... Oh.
And one of
my head hurts just looking at it.
One of the scariest things for both of these players is that since they are drawing from each other's deck, they don't know exactly what outs they may have. So for instance, let's say a board state happens where Saiyan needs his second Hooked Reaver in order to play it, and he might life tap to look for it, but if Hunterace has held back that Hooked Reaver for the entire game, he won't know if it's in the deck or not, because right now Hunterace has about 6 of Saiyan's cards, and Saiyan has 2 of Hunterace's.
Yeah, and Hunterace really wants Gul'dan, but newsflash, you're not getting it.
No, that bad boy is currently in Saiyan's hand.
And like you say, it's just so complicated what might go on.
Yes.
And you've both got impartial information at this point. Azleen is different, you know everything that's happening. But Togwaggle is just cheeky king. He doesn't tell you everything.
He is a very cheeky person. And could have pushed a lot of damage with that Starfall here if, you know, Hunterace had decided to go for that. Looks like Hunterace is just going to go for a full board clear.
And the prime time for mistakes is straight after the deck swap, or the card swap, because you don't have long to readjust your whole plan. Especially if you're saying and suddenly the Togwaggle just appears, you're like, oh, Druid, what do I do now? I'm sure he knows full well. I'm sure he's played this quite a lot in playtest, but...
But then again, do you come up against a scenario like this specific one? Not all games go this way. That's one of the unique things about Druid, is you can play test against Druid all you want, but when a unique scenario comes up like this, you may have only had 1 to 2 games testing on this. And a lot of this is thinking on the fly for these players.
And I think it is why we are seeing the best players, the big names, whatever you want to call them, making top 16 time and time and time again, because at the moment, these are the guys that are best at thinking quickly. And okay, a lot of it is preparation, a lot of it is pre-prepared stuff, but also somebody who's not used to this sort of matchup just isn't going to beat one of these 2 guys.
Yeah, if you have not ever been in this game state, or if you have not played this particular matchup, you are in for a long, long trip. It's very difficult to navigate this at its, you know, optimum proficiency.
They get to use their skill advantage just because it's like, how good are you at Hearthstone? Go. We've just ruined all your preparation.
And I think Saiyan's happy making this play, saying, you know what, you do have access to those Giants, which are a lot of pressure, but this sets up lethal on the following turn with that Hellfire through armor, so it would force Hunterace to have some kind of taunt here.
I feel, though, that the way it's going to get cancelled out over and over again means that Saiyan needs to get Gul'dan down, or he is going to fall to the Malfurion hero power, which is actually really good right now. And yeah, now Hunterace is set up lethal. Your move.
This feels like a weird tavern brawl.
Yeah, I was saying that as well. It's like
where you just
build each other's decks
together.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Or they're both playing Druid Lock.
Druid Lock.
Drew Lock. Drolk? I don't know.
Drulok.
Warid?
Zuid.
Zulok?
I mean, there's so many things. So many W's, which makes it easier for me.
So they're saying just going to go ahead and utilize that Ultimate Infestation. Could try and find some surprise spot where...
Surprise! I've got your deck.
Well, I was going to say some kind of surprise spot where they're both going to fatigue and he goes ahead and King's Ransom in the deck because he now has Hunterace's deck. He can King's Ransom it and naturalize 4 fatigue damage. As weird as that is, he can do that.
These games always end up as absolute chaos.
Chaos is a nice word for it right now, Lorinda.
Because you naturally fall into the pattern of just looking for certain cards in your hand and suddenly it just doesn't make sense. Like Swipe and Hellfire just look like the same thing, but they're totally different.
I wonder.
Yeah, I can see that.
It just look like a 4-drop that does damage, you know what it does, but they're not the same card.
Could opt to go Hellfire trade off. Chooses to do that. I think Saiyan might be on this game plan of trying to draw through the entire deck and now play as a Togwaggle Warlock and use the Druid cards in order to capitalize on this game.
And then there's the Azalina question. He doesn't know if he's got one in his deck or not.
He might be worried that Azalina's been in the hand the entire time. You never know. That's the craziest part about it. He's going to have to Skulking Geist to get rid of
His own naturalizers.
Oh my gosh.
What's going on? Meanwhile, he's setting up lethal again. Swipe and Hellfire is 7 damage. He's got Blood Mage Thalnos as well, so it's actually more than that. 9.
Yes. And he opted to go for the Skulking Geist first because he would rather draw a more impactful card than the second Spellstone, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe the second Spellstone was still in the deck. If it was not, then just that ordering thing.
And if he hits the 5/5 here, he will lose to the Swipe nonsense. I think he does anyway, actually.
I think he does anyways.
Blood Mage, Swipe,
Blood Mage,
Face,
Swipe,
Hellfire.
Push the damage phase and Hellfire.
Oh, he's got it a million different ways, yeah. Because the Swipe clears the 7/2.
Yeah, it's just going to be lethal for Saiyan. I don't think there's anything Hunterace can do.
If he plays a Homunculus, he takes 2 damage, which means that doesn't help.
I think no matter what he plays, even if he plays something like the Sunfury Protector, he could just go ahead and taunt up the Bone Mare, but could just swipe the Bone Mare.
Yeah, and then it's 5 plus 4 is 9. And the 1 from the Swipe plus the 2 from the Swipe. Yeah, easy. All
No matter what
options
Hunterace
lead to
does.
sadness.
All right.
Saiyan 2-1 up. He's almost got Hunterace beaten in a Hearthstone tournament in 2018.
Absolutely crazy game there. Saiyan is going to be up 2-1 against the best player in the world right now. Saiyan's got something to prove this game.
He has, and I mean, if Saiyan can win this and get himself in a prime position at DreamHack Montreal, then maybe he's one result away from really reinserting himself back into that question of, is he better than Hunterace?
Saiyan was one of the players in the top 16 and the player in top 8 that I think has had the most credentials and has had the most success, but has not had that big win.
Yep, I would agree with that.
This would mean
another semi-final. That'd be his third semi-final of the year.
But if he were to take this tournament,
yes,
I think it would mean so much to Saiyan.
And then he goes into playoffs next weekend on Play Hearthstone, and a chance to maybe get himself into the championships as well.
I think that's going to be a huge, huge confidence booster if he can win this tournament, because that shows himself that he can do it. And a lot of times, you know, it's an untalked about thing in Hearthstone. If you have that confidence, if you have that, you know, just self-empowerment of, look what I did, I can do it again.
Yes.
It makes the difference, because right now Saiyan might be thinking, I've already lost to Hunterace twice. I don't want it to happen again, but how do I beat him?
I really don't want it to happen again.
Really don't want it to happen again, but how do I beat him? And then if Saiyan beats him, he says, I finally conquered my demon.
Yeah, and everybody else's. I know we joke about it, but Hunterace's run this year has been so exceptional. It's finally put to rest any question of, is there a lot of skill in Hearthstone? Because you cannot mathematically run that lucky. It's not actually
it's
possible.
Not possible. That is
He's had some lucky runs, he's had some lucky cards, but the fact every time he gets a piece of luck, he uses it and never ever misses it. You know, doesn't throw away the bit of luck he gets. And then there's a few players just behind also proving it again. Fino, Saiyan, Muzzy, Casey.
Amnesiac, just all of these strong players.
And they're pulling away. I think the top sort of 20 players are putting a lot of ground between themselves and the next tier.
Saiyan had an interesting choice in the mulligan there. You saw him debate whether or not to keep Acidic Swamp Ooze. I think Saiyan would much rather value that chance at the Mountain Giant rather than the Acidic Swamp Ooze. But one of the most important cards for this Warrior deck that makes the matchup quite feasible is Super Collider. Super Collider being played is going to allow him to kind of clean up these board states that he typically would not have access to. Super Collider finally gave Control Warrior a tool to deal with 2 mid-range size threats.
Yeah, Saiyan does have the Geist in his deck. That's really irritating against Warrior. Oh, it's Control Warrior, isn't it? Not traditional.
It is the
My notes are so grim. Yeah.
So yeah, Skulking Geist is a pretty powerful card in this matchup. It gets rid of the Omega Assemblies, it gets rid of the Whirlwind, it gets rid of the Shield Slam, and all of those cards, you know, they're very valuable cards in themselves. Shield Slam obviously deals with those larger threats, and Omega Assembly just gives the Warrior gas in the later stages of the game when they have Dr. Boom up, when they have to clear some of these board states.
Saiyan has a very efficient early hand, but none of those big minions. He's going to be able to set up board state after board state. Casting Hunterace is a nightmare at the moment. He spends half of his time playing someone else's deck. From round to round, he's like, oh, last night he's playing Dead Man's Warrior. then he plays Druid with his Druid, but it's a different Druid. He just played like 25 different decks in this tournament. Might as well let him have Whizbang. Azalina meta, of course, making everything really silly.
Azalina is a powerful card.
It's fun.
And right now we see what Saiyan's trying to do here is put some mid-range threats out there, kind of force Hunterace to use removal in ways that he doesn't really want to, maybe baits out something. You see Hunterace there, although the Shield Slam doesn't land onto a Giant, he needs to get rid of it as fairly quickly as possible because there is the potential for Skulking Geist to come down on turn 6.
Yeah, you might as well get something
rid of that card.
decent. Getting rid of Twilight Drake.
Exactly. Twilight Drake's a sticky minion. Also has that Reckless Flurry still, that if, say, Giant were to be played this turn, the Beetle would go face, put Hunterace to 8 health, could then Reckless Flurry and Hero Power, and call it a day.
Yeah, and you're not going to run away with armor if you don't do that. Let's have a look. That might help his decision, picking up the second one.
I definitely think he would commit to it even if he didn't have the second one. But you're right, when you pick up the second version of the card, it really makes you more lenient with the first one.
Now, I've been critical of people before doing this, but there is a reason to use the one you just picked up. It telegraphs to some players that you haven't got the other one. The downside of using the one you just picked up is if they have got the read on the other one, you've just given away information about your hand.
But Saiyan will be thinking about why he used that Shield Slam as aggressively as he did. And Saiyan's going to be evaluating, you know, was there another Reckless Flurry? I'm not sure how much it's going to change, but it's definitely something to think about using the one that's already previous in the hand versus the one that's drawn off the top. These little psychological factors can make the difference in the long run.
And also when you're playing each other more than once or twice in a year, you have to mix it up. I felt like that one wasn't particularly convincing somehow. I think that Saiyan probably won't fall for it and overextend into the next one. But you do have to make sure that you don't always use the right or always use the left, which is more normal. And
yeah, it's nice to, you know, have little mix-ups from time to time.
Because they watch these big games back to see where they went wrong, especially if you're Saiyan and you've lost the other two. So if you do spot a pattern in your opponent's play, it can be abused. So Hunterace just throwing some percentages out there.
These players are going to try and find every edge they can, percentage-wise, to win these matchups. Whether that 0.01%.
And future matchups.
And future ones, you're exactly right.
So that there, next time he uses the right-hand card, Saiyan doesn't know if there's another one in his hand or not next time they meet. which is absurd. We're thinking about talking about players who might play each other so many times in a year.
Talk about something so minuscule, but it does make the difference in the long run sometimes. Saying right now.
No, I was just going to say that, like the famous guys, the top 20 that I keep referring to.
Yeah.
They're so scrutinized by people trying to get better. If they have got a pattern in their play, it will get noticed.
That is true. There's a lot of pressure on both these players' shoulders right now. Saiyan's going to be trying to figure out how much he wants to extend. He could just let this one minion sit. The question is if he wants to commit maybe a Shroom Brewer or a Gen Greymane. He commits the Gen Greymane, that's opening himself up to Super Collider.
Yeah.
And
he also wants to set up his cooldown, right?
I think he wants to do that as well. And right now, he can't afford to commit into a Super Collider. And the reason I say that is he doesn't have strong follow-up. Sure, he could bait it out with the Gen Greymane and then play the Acidic Swamp Ooze to get rid of it. But he doesn't have a strong board state to make after that.
Ordering there of interest, forcing the Super Collider to hit the 6-5, not the 4-4, by not taunting it up.
Yes.
Should it exist? So again, what you were talking about, that is exactly at the forefront of his mind right now.
Super Collider is a very powerful card. He has to find some approach there, because if he just leaves that one minion up, it's weak to Dynamatic. If he goes too wide, it's weak to Brawl. And if he doesn't go wide enough, it's weak to Super Collider.
Well, that's nice.
I know, right? You just have to play around everything.
Yeah.
But that's what Saiyan can do, and he can do it well.
Also in the shuffle there, did develop another Demon, which means that eventually his Gul'dan will get more work done. Only a little bit, and probably get brawled away or flowed away when it happens, but you still want to get as much stuff back as possible if you can.
I got this.
Now the Super Collider looks like it's going to be very strong, but he's playing around it beautifully. He wants to make sure he has one of those small little measly minions in between. That way Super Collider cannot put in the work that it needs to.
I mean, it can't anyway.
But
I'll tell you why, because he hasn't got it.
That.
But Saiyan doesn't know this.
Some knowledge over there, and I really like it.
Just keeping an eye, you know. Just thought, you know, I'd explain.
That's the new glasses you're wearing.
Yeah, I can see the board
You can
now.
actually see the hand and board.
I'm not calling, like, Farsight Hex anymore.
I remember that.
Not that that happened.
I remember
it
that.
Was, were you with me? You were with me.
I was.
And it was that key where I got the hint that the card was called Farsight that I thought, maybe I should be able to see. Maybe the word sight is a clue. It's a message that like, maybe I should get glasses.
Lorinda, I mean, sure, he can farsight into the hex, but that's a little optimistic, don't you think? Don't you think?
You saved me good that day, but now we've just ruined it all. Hunterace, all those removal options you were talking about. And of course, Saiyan is playing on the Super Collider because he can't see Hunterace's hand like we can.
Hunterace is still at 31 health right now. He hasn't... This is the first time I think I haven't seen him have armor.
Yeah, and again. Doing anything he can to just use his minions as, not threats, but just removal tools.
That's a pretty strong draw, though. If it wasn't for the Dynamatic, that I think Saiyan's going to be worried about in the back of his mind.
So that's why the 3-3 is good?
That's why Hunterace developed 3-3, is because if Lich King were to be drawn, could go ahead and trade and play that Dynamatic.
Or a Giant, don't forget.
Or a Giant,
it's not
any kind of
yeah.
pressure minion. So it looks like Saiyan's not even going to commit to that. He just wants to bait it out.
Yeah.
He's not even life tapping anymore, saying that he's going to try and win this game through Gul'dan hero powers and one minion pressure. I think that's what Saiyan's trying to go for right now.
Looks that way. And the Gul'dan hero power is better than tank up when it gets into fatigue. I must remind you of that. It basically does, the way to think of it is it does 6 points of stuff and the warrior one does 4 points. That is when you start losing health through the fatigue damage. Obviously, when you're on full health, the warrior one is temporarily better because it can go above 30.
Hunterace is going to have to be careful here, trying to figure out, what resources he can commit to this board. He really wants to use his minion pressures as much as possible. Brawl sometimes can be a very dead card in this matchup.
Yeah, he wants to try and force Saiyan to go wide, but the deck doesn't have the tools to do that. It has tank up, which is how it forces aggro decks to go wide because they have to put 3 or 4 minions down to make a dent. But when you're playing against this deck, you don't have that ability so much.
And there you see Hunterace copy the Dynamatic. I think it's a very powerful card to copy. Uses the coin just to fit into hero power. Might as well. I think it kind of, you know, the coin doesn't really matter too much in this deck right now, especially being on 10 mana.
And it's back into that spot you were talking about. It's trying to stop from Saiyan for only playing 1 minion a turn. Well, I'm only going to play 1 card this turn too, and a lot of minions to solve that problem. Well, 2's a lot. It's more than 1. But less than 3.
Saiyan's still got a long road ahead of himself. This will be a long game for these players. Saiyan cannot let the length of this game get to him for fatigue.
And
Saiyan
these
still has
hero
one more
powers
matchup
are
after this if he does.
set for that.
Yeah, these hero powers are what nightmares are made of. Especially for avid
Yeah, and the last deck is that token druid for Saiyan, which with the Whirlwind in Hunterace's deck makes
It's
it a
an
very
interesting
interesting
matchup.
match. You can definitely get it done on either side.
We've seen that token druid win multiple times, but we've also seen that Odd Warrior win.
Yeah, Monsanto was getting some really good work done with that token druid against Warrior the other day.
It's pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if it is 50-50.
Yeah, it seems that way to me. It depends on the exact builds and so on, of course. I think the strong shell version is definitely in a decent spot, but again, Hunterace does have that Whirlwind, which probably takes most of that away.
Decisions.
The issue is going to be whether Saiyan can, you know, take this to the long run. There's not much pressure in the deck for Hunterace, but he's going to be able to shuffle things back, whereas Saiyan will not be able to do that. I mean, for Saiyan, it might have to be something like a Lich King into a Death Grip in order to take maybe an Elise, in order to put the Elise pack into his deck and kind of, you know, take that chance away, because it also takes a card from Hunterace's deck, maybe puts him further into fatigue. But right now, Saiyan's just got to take it slow.
Sure is.
I must
Shoot your Dynamatic. Great.
It's like a very slow game of badminton.
So looking at badminton.
Yeah. Just just kind of hits his turnover.
That's
bit
just
of an emote there. I
the
love
weirdest
that.
thing to think of at this point.
I think Saiyan knows he's in for the long run now, so he's just trying to keep his mind fresh. You know, you kind of do silly things like that to just kind of reset your mind.
Do you actually play badminton underarm? Are you that bad at the game?
I just used hand motion, Lorinda. Don't judge me.
That looks like you're playing underarm badminton. I don't
What's
think
wrong with the underarm badminton league?
you get the shuttle sort of straight back in your face because it's coming over so slowly. I don't know. I want to play badminton against you now.
Desk with me. Lorinda's a bully.
Yeah, something like that. The trading excitement of the 3-4 versus the 4-4.
Which one wins?
The one with the Whirlwind gets a draw. Complex trading going on here.
I mean, these players are just going to be hero powering and playing the cards they currently have in their hand. Both these players are going to be trying to take this matchup as far as they can. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lich King come out here. The issue with that is, you know, Hunterace still has another Shield Slam, and there's a Faceless in the deck. And we can see Hunterace has that Faceless in hand.
You can also see the damage that Saiyan has done to Hunterace's game plan here. Those MC techs, those brawls, just sitting there useless in the hand from the way that Saiyan has approached it. At some point, Hunterace will have to play an MC tech just for some presence, I should think, in another 3-4 versus 4-4 standoff.
Yeah, but it's gonna be a crazy game because JustSaiyan just hit a very dead card for what his game plan is right now.
Did.
Both players just did. I mean, those Lich Kings didn't do anything.
That's amazing.
I mean, to be honest, the MVP of this game might just be Mossy Horror because it is so obnoxious to deal with. Saiyan's probably going to stick a Mossy Horror. It's going to deal 2 damage turn after turn with the hero power just to deal 1 damage through that armor up hero power.
Hey.
And then eventually
Go, Mossy, go.
Go, Mossy, go.
You got this. You can do this. The little Mossy that could.
I will say that I do like this from JustSaiyan, though. Not committing the Mossy Horror just yet because there's no real reason to. But Hellfires are a very dead card in this matchup. If you can fit in 8 damage through this Hellfires, I think you should go for it, and that's exactly what Saiyan did here. It's also an awkward minion to deal with.
Yeah,
Even being an
8-2 is
8-2.
irritating. Can the Stonehill get something good? This could be important.
Oh, Sleepy Dragon's pretty big. Could be the Fen Creeper just to put it in the way. That way, Hunterace hopefully doesn't take that 8 damage again. Because Hunterace might feel as if, you know, he just wins in fatigue. Might as well just not take that damage and fit in a hero power every turn.
What he's going to do. And temporarily over the last few turns, Saiyan does seem to have just got into a decent position. But that changes so fast. And he can't overcommit. The whole plan has been don't let Hunterace even get a 50-50 brawl, let alone a real one.
And the scary part about this is he's just going to try and utilize this Lich King as much as possible, even though it got silenced. He's going to want to fit a hero power in every turn. I think Saiyan's already dedicated his plan to that.
Yeah, he's just working out which one to hit, the one for the face.
He's also trying to make sure that that Super Collider doesn't do anything. This is going to extend a bit into Brawl.
There's so much going on here for Saiyan, even though it looks like nothing is occurring. And the board for face index gave him a 3 to the face there.
Exactly right. Board to face index.
Did you hear us talking about coconuts earlier?
What?
Obviously not.
Why were you talking about coconuts? There's
That's how
action
Firebat
going
takes
on.
notes. But yeah, work
I
that out.
don't understand.
No, I do. You have to watch the VOD.
How do you take notes with coconuts?
They help you count to 2. Think about that. I've just confused Dr. J until he gets to see the VOD forever.
Bowling balls can count to 3.
Yeah, especially when they hit a strike. Fireball.
It was Fireball. It was not Flame Strike.
We
I'm
got
positive.
robbed. That video robbed us. We were the best. We said none of those things. You didn't start singing.
I still want to know what this coconut thing's about.
So one of the game boards, you can get rid of the coconuts. So Firebat's saying if he wants to count how many, say, spreading plagues have gone in the game, so he doesn't forget, he like removes a coconut when the plague comes down.
Oh, okay. I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it makes very little sense.
You know how I do it?
Use a piece of paper.
No, I just hold up my fingers.
For the whole
my
game?
left hand for the whole game. I hold up 2 because that's how many spreading plagues they can play. And as soon as one's gone, I put a finger
Yeah,
down.
that's definitely much easier. I agree.
The entire game, I'm just holding my hand up going, all right, 2 spreading plagues. As soon as they play one, I go, whoop, there's 1.
Yeah. Just be careful not to be rude to people when you do it.
Exactly. That's why I can do it in the safety of my home.
Super Collider's here. It's only taken a little while. Saiyan's been playing around it all game, so he'll obviously continue to do so. But now Hunterace has dealt with the next giant. Super Collider's going to mean at least he gets some damage in. And it's back to an equal game state.
And the reason Hunterace is not committing to these mind control techs, because if there's a last-ditch effort where Hunterace is forced to play mind control tech and brawl, he needs to hold on to that minion just in case he needs to win that brawl. That's why you see him holding on to them. Sure, it would contest the board and it would also die to the hero power, but he needs to hold them for another reason. It's the hero power and being able to Hail Mary out the brawl.
Yeah. Yeah, hasn't got many cheap minions left. Still got some assemblies to come, I think.
Unless
Has
the
there been
guys come
been
first.
played?
No, because the shield slam was committed onto the giant. So
So
there still are Omega assemblies,
and they're still Skulking Geist,
but there's still Skulking Geist.
probably. Yep, it's there. Got a deck list.
We saw it one of the previous games. And now you see he's going to go ahead and hide one of those mind control techs, wants to put something on the board. This Bone Mare draw makes this Vulgar Homunculus cleanly answer the Direhorn Matriarch.
Yeah. But then it dies to the MC tech. Just happens
Maybe
to be on the
that's why
board.
Hunterace played the MC tech.
I mean, it makes you wonder sometimes. He always seems to have the minion on the board at the right time. And obviously not every single one of those things would be deliberate, but most of them will be, or some of them will be. But Super Collider, the better option. And he's going to put Saiyan down to 29 already.
Hunterace draws first blood.
And now has got a mini board and the pack in the deck, which he needs. He doesn't need it yet, but he needs it soon to get that reload, a bit of extra fuel. And packs have such high variance.
They do. Sometimes they can be insanely good. Sometimes they can be 5 Bright-Eyed Scouts.
Sometimes they can be Chittering Tunneler.
Sometimes they can be Chittering Tunneler. You never know. You see here, Saiyan's just going to go ahead and answer these things on the board, fit in that hero power. He's not committing the Spellstone just yet because he would rather Spellstone heal him up so he goes back to full life. And there's no real reason to waste that healing when every point of damage is going to matter this game.
I'm just looking at these two hands thinking, how is anyone supposed to ever kill anybody?
Mossy
and the answer
Horror.
is they never do.
Mossy Horror is how somebody's supposed to win this game, because what's going to happen at the end of the day is Mossy Horror is going to be the MVP. Listen to me, Lorinda. What's going to happen is Mossy Horror is going to be the last lone minion alive, and being a 2/7 stat line means that Hunterace will not be able to deal with it, and it will push that 1 extra damage to that hero power every turn to win the game.
He's waving that pen at me very aggressively. 2, 1. Fingers, we've got this sorted. Well, Hunterace has developed the closest thing he's had to a board in the last hour. 5-2 and a 3-3.
And JustSaiyan is now taking the board back.
Yeah, these boards are getting big. It's not 1 versus 1 anymore. They're starting to bully each other into 2 versus 1 situations.
There is a strong play with the Iron Beak Owl onto the Twilight Drake, the Super Collider into the 2-4. And it's looking pretty solid to me. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the play. Can still fit in that hero power. Wants to do that every single turn because this game is going the distance.
Yeah, the damage, obviously, every piece you can sneak through. Might not seem like it matters now, but it will matter in a few turns' time. Getting to the business end of that, and they have both just run out of stuff.
They're both getting pretty low on the deck. Skulking Geist is an important draw here because it does get rid of Omega Assemblies, and JustSaiyan's going to be very happy to see that it's going to get rid of both from the deck.
As well, yeah, thinning the deck down a little bit more.
Thinning the deck down.
I mean, he knows they're not in hand, but they would have been played by now. Hunterace is low on gas.
JustSaiyan's going to be very relieved to see that.
Very nice for him.
Baku is a big beast to play onto the board. That does get answered pretty cleanly by some of the materials in hand.
I guess if you get the Spellstone spent up before you've commenced the... For the opposite reason you were saying, he's trying to hold the Spellstones to heal him for the max. If you can get them to Spellstone this now rather than later, he's kind of done some damage because it's removed the Spellstone.
It's also that I think Saiyan was holding on to the Spellstone to be able to answer the second Matriarch from the Direhorn Hatchling, or the Baku, because they would be the hardest minions to answer. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Skulking Guys just go face and try and end this game.
Crashes into that arm.
Like I say, Lorinda, board to face index.
ESPX, yeah. That's what my notes say.
It's not right at all. It was close enough.
Now, Azalina, ready for any sort of reload if Saiyan messes around. And then they'll both have Sack Pack to deal with each other's Hooked Reavers. That'd be nice.
That's pretty funny. I'm not going to lie.
So they both have Army of the Dead, Sack Pack, Hooked Reaver, Mr. Mossy. You didn't say which side he was going to win it for, and a Defile. Like, you can't have much of a worse hand for each player than that.
I mean, with Mossy Horror, whoever plays Mossy Horror last wins, because Mossy Horror is notorious for being cannibalistic and
yeah, there can only be one Mossy Horror at any one time.
There can only be one Mossy Horror.
Mosslander.
Muzzyland.
No, we're not going back to Muzzyland.
Let's not go
Just
back
saying
to
goes to Muzzyland for help sometimes, but not that often. But Muzzyland.
Muzzy Horror.
Where there is only ever one Mossy Horror at any one time.
Ooh. I think Hunterace would have rather not drawn that this turn.
That seems to happen so often. You draw the pack the turn before.
And
what's
these
this?
Aren't that strong. I mean, the two of them are value generators, which are powerful.
One of them
but
thins your deck out.
The Obsidian Shard isn't the most impactful.
But that's a card.
But Mossy Horror.
But Defile. Defile might have a use.
You're not wrong. Emerald Reaver, you know,
is the worst card you could possibly have got.
Is there for moral support. I don't know about that. There could be Snow Flipper Penguin.
Costs less. You can actually play it when you're Azalina.
Does less damage, though. You could play Emerald Reaver when you Azalina.
Yeah, but it costs one more. What if you steal good cards that you need to play?
Fair point.
It's not really. It's just me trying to dig out of a hole. Costs one last for each card you play for another class. Shame you can't Azalina first and keep that. That's not how it works when you take a hand away. And Hunterace is just trying to dump these. What is this board? What's even going on anymore?
I'm not sure, but Saiyan is now in fatigue. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Defile, the Spellbreaker, the Hero Power.
But
Your magic shall not.
that Defile is gone, meaning that Mossy Horror is going to have to play a part in the Elixir challenge.
And Hunterace still has 2 cards left in the deck after drawing for turn.
Yeah, he's looking to be in a good spot as things are starting to resolve themselves now. Hemet isn't actually going to empty his deck if he plays it in a turn or two's time. Is aware of the Mossy Horror. You still get the 8/8, and Mossy Horror is not a cheap card to throw onto the board.
No, I mean, honestly, at this point, I think Saiyan knows he's lost this game, but
He
there's
looks
still a chance.
thoroughly excited to me.
He looks very excited right now.
His prospects.
Both these players are just so deep in their minds right now, trying to think about how they win this series.
I think Saiyans thinking about how he wins the next game.
I think so as well. I think Saiyan's also thinking, please don't let me lose to Hunterace again. Not the 3rd time in the row. I was told the 3rd time's the charm.
Yeah, and it still might be, but he's going to have to do it the hard way. It's always the hard way against Hunterace, let's face it.
Wouldn't be surprised to see this Hero Power go on to the Nixia.
Yeah, you got to kill it
You
somehow.
might have
It's
to be
just gonna
forced
do
to
you.
put in the Spellbreaker as well, just to guarantee it dies.
But then you have nothing to win the game with. You're waiting until you get down below 15 to play a 7/7.
I guess face is the play. Could still clean it up with that Mossy Horror on the following turn. But Hunterace still has 1 card left in the deck. Hasn't even hit fatigue
Yeah,
yet.
Saya's just had enough of this nonsense.
He's holding on for some sliver of hope.
He tried to concede, and then something in the back of his mind said, no, we want to see another return of this.
Saiyan said, well, what if there's a hypothetical world
Where Dr. Boom is the 31st card.
where
Yeah, go on. Let's go to
I'm trying to
Chicky
find
Minky
the
world.
I'm trying to find this hypothetical world right now.
Yeah,
where
maybe
Saiyan wins this
Hunterace
game.
drew
If Hunterace
all
feels
curves.
bad for beating Saiyan twice in a row earlier.
And now he gives up because he sees that Hunterace has a card in his hand. And it goes to 2 games all, and pretty much what we've expected from last hero standing. If you don't get that early 2-0, then you do go to 2-2 a lot of the time.
And I wouldn't be surprised if both these players are just kind of thinking to themselves, you know, that was a...
Of time. We are into this final game of this quarterfinal. Hunterace has got the Whirlwind in his opener. Saiyan has got Nourish and UI available. Probably throw the UI because he hasn't got any other ramp. To see what he does with the Tyrant here. And considering keeping all of these 3 cards,
I wouldn't be
shock if he did.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Ultimate Infestation is one of those powerful cards in this deck, and I really think you need it to operate, especially when you already have Nourish in your hand. It's not as if there was just the Ultimate Infestation on the coin. And even then, I would see some merit for keeping it. I think Ultimate Infestation is necessary. And I'm actually shocked to see Hunterace, you know, he goes ahead and mulligan away the Whirlwind.
Well, he knows that Saiyan probably won't go for an early board because if he keeps the Whirlwind, Saiyan's not going to bother. So he's just going to have the threat of Whirlwind being drawn to keep Saiyan at bay and not use the actual card to do the job.
And right now, if there's a hand to do it for JustSaiyan, I think with a Wild Growth start into a Nourish, into eventually being able to get down that Ultimate Infestation is what he needs right now if he wants to conquer Hunterace.
And this is one of the benefits of this new build. The ability to have something to do on turn 4 is a big one. Beforehand, you had just Violet Teachers or the ways of fetching Violet Teachers, that was it. But now you can build different little boards that's a bit more sticky.
Yeah, it's also better against the Warrior a lot of the times because if they have that
Dynamatic.
answer to Violet Teacher or that Dynamatic, it just cleans it up so clearly, whereas being able to, you know, play out the Serenite Chain Gang, then buff it with a Strong Shell Scavenger and push the damage that way means a lot to this Druid deck. It definitely changes the dynamic up a lot. Right now, 2 Ultimate Infestations in the hand. Saiyan's going to have a lot of gas this game. The question is, will Hunterace piece together that removal? And how far down in the deck is Saiyan's board states?
And the whole thing is going to take a long time because Saiyan won't commit to board states very early, trying to fish out that removal. Hunterace playing the Omega Assembly here because he's expecting there to be a Geist later on. Double check that now, but I'm sure it will be there.
No, Saiyan can't afford to play Skulking Geist in his token Druid.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I think
another Druid fail for me today.
It's all right. I think he's mostly just playing this out because he wants to have some kind of pressure. I don't think he necessarily needs the maximum pressure for that. I think he just wants to go ahead and just get something onto the board to contest these Serenite Chain Gangs. All right.
I've just been Azalina, Jay. Azalina just made me think every card every day.
I don't blame you. These sets, there's a lot going on.
There is. But what's going on now is a lot of mana for Saiyan.
Saiyan's going to be thinking about whether he wants to commit this Arcane Tyrant.
I think you do.
Think so as well. Even playing around the Super Collider by putting it into the middle, making sure that, you know, he maintains his wide board state. Almost wouldn't be surprised to see Nourish for ramp come out next turn just to save the coin.
Because he has the double UI, everything's going to be a bit messy as well. You'd like to
get rid of
draw
the cards
with
in your
it,
hand.
but you're just not going to in this situation.
Hunterace has to be careful not to take too much early game damage.
Right, that can be a problem because suddenly you're facing down 3 or 4 minions that are representing lethal. And if you let the token druid represent lethal, you have to deal with things even if they don't have the lethal available because you don't know that. And that's why sometimes you'll see, we saw Muzzy do it, you'll see somebody use a Savage Roar for a middling amount just to keep the warrior down.
So Saiyan right now can't go for the Nourish for ramp just to really guarantee that Ultimate Infestation comes down next turn. Maybe could fit in a Savage Roar afterwards if he wants to clean up the majority of this board state. There's also, you know, potential for just playing another Serenite Chain Gang, trading off into it, trying to make a wider board state for the Savage Roar on the future turns. I definitely think Nourish for ramp should be one of the plays. You really want to make sure you cast this Ultimate Infestation. I mean, there's another hybrid play where you just cast Serenite Chain Gang, use the Savage Roar now, but Saiyan's going to be asking himself, if he casts the Savage Roar now, will he have enough damage later on?
Later, yeah.
Because you only have 4 of those buffs. 2 Branching Paths and 2 Savage Roars. If you commit one now, you accept that this Savage Roar is not dealing more than how much damage currently. And we see that, you know, he's not accepting of that. He wants to go wide into the board.
He's got Coin Infestation next turn, and because he's done this, that will make sure that the Nourish can sit there maybe for a rainy day. He doesn't need the mana from it, so...
That's fair.
He probably doesn't need the cards from it, but he definitely doesn't need the mana from it, so he's just going to sit there and have it hang around for a little while.
Might be kind of a last-ditch effort if, you know, he casts this Ultimate Infestation and he wants to try and find more cards later on, or he gets through both of these and neither of these found the cards he needed. So I don't blame him for, you know, holding on to it. It's definitely a hard call.
And he's giving Hunterace some early issues here, but Hunterace, we say that, he's on 6 mana, he's got 50 health.
He does have 50 health.
And Mr. Boom.
He does have 50 health, but Token Druid sometimes just eats through that health. I mean, sometimes you think you're safe at 40 and...
Yeah, you might be dead, you might be down to 6 or something next turn.
One Force of Nature Savage Roar away. One Force of Nature.
At least I have flashbacks to last series, not 2 years ago.
Yeah, at least they don't have Force of Nature anymore. You just kind of, you know when the Treants are going to hit you because they're already on the board.
Yeah, well, they hide. They hide behind wisps. Big trees hiding behind little wisps.
It's weird to think about.
It is.
Are those wisps actually little?
Perhaps they're huge.
I mean, maybe they are giant wisps.
Yeah.
There's an idea. New card, Giant Wisp. 0 mana 10/10.
If it dies, win the game. Maybe that's how that starts.
You have to have all the cards in your deck.
Yeah, you have to have more than 30 cards in your deck. More than 30 health. And your opponent has to have 7 minions on board.
Lorinda, I think we are now being recruited for the design team.
Giant Wisp. Get on it, Chucky.
Saiyan right now has another important card in this matchup in the form of that Malfurion. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets that down now. Saiyan's going to be, you know, taking the time on his turn because this game is probably one of Saiyan's most important games. I'm sure he's had very important games in his life, but I'd say right now, this may be one of the most important for him.
If he loses this one again, what happens next time he plays Hunterace? You might be able to hear, by the way, all around the arena, Dreamhack is hotting up. There's finals and semi-finals and other things going on. If you hear them through their headset, that is why. There's obviously plenty of cheering for the Hearthstone too, but there's some of the other games taking place. You can hear so much going on around us.
I'm a little shocked to see Saiyan, you know, maybe not commit to that Malfurion. I think that was partly just because he knows that there's mind control tech in the hand, and if he commits to the Malfurion, he accepts that mind control tech will take a minion. I don't think he quite wants to accept that just yet.
You're losing 2 minions if you lose a soul minion. Man in the Forest minion.
What was it you called it? Woods of Ghost.
Yeah,
Woods.
I think so.
Woods of Ghost Woods.
Don't see what's wrong with that.
Sounds like a really bad sitcom.
Probably is.
Saiyan's just going to be trying to capitalize on how can he push through this damage. He could use both the Spellstones. They are upgraded to the 4 damage. Then could Branching Paths and Savage Roar. I mean, how much damage is that? I don't think it's quite the 35 just yet.
It's
getting
close.
pretty close.
Yeah. He needs to work out. And this is the problem. He can't go wider than 3 very easily because of those empty techs. But if you could go just that little bit wider, he'd represent so much damage so quickly.
It's about in the range of 24. I almost wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe half measure this or just go for it.
It's going to take the damage while it's there. This is how we saw Muzzy play this matchup. It's just damage is available. Don't worry about doing it in one go. Just now you're threatening to do it next turn and start putting that pressure on.
Because if you're Hunterace in the situation, what can you do? You can brawl, but then the trance are left afterwards.
He does have Whirlwind in his deck, which he mulliganed away. He's got the Owl.
Does have Dr. Boom into Kaboom. There's 2 Owls, but even with 2 Owls, you put them down to 2 ones. The Savage Roar could end it on the following turn.
It's not looking too good for Hunterace here. Is Saiyan finally going to get it done?
It's looking like that right now, but it may come down to, does Hunterace go for this Dr. Boom, get the Kaboom, and then eventually, you know, gain that 7 armor and try and fight through the board that way? Saiyan right now does not have that second Savage Roar, but if he finds it, game's over.
Woof.
Oof, indeed, Lorinda. Hunterace is just going to have to figure out what he wants to do here. Could silence the minions, fit in a hero power. I wouldn't be surprised to see that play.
Especially just pick the Owl up.
I'm almost like a mind
calling
reader.
you out on that one. They do notice what we do, you know.
I'm going to go for a half measure.
It's 50-50 on the Owl as well, assuming that you don't mind if a 5-5 wins.
Okay.
This is actually not too horrendous, but it's not great.
Not lethal damage just yet. Very close. There is a potential for JustSaiyan just to ship the Ultimate Infestation at the face, just to put a 5-5 on the board. Because if you commit to the Malfurion, you open yourself up to MC Tech that JustSaiyan knows is in the hand. If you play the Ultimate Infestation, you may burn 2 cards.
No, he's going to take it slow. He's done enough damage for this Malfurion to be a big threat.
Might take Poisonous Spiders.
But he has...
It's a consideration, especially because you know there won't be that taunt minion in the way.
He's put 4 things on the board, though.
It does make the MC Tech much better.
Although, MC Tech leaves 7 mana, Hunterace has got to be able to defend himself.
And even so, if he's using the MC Tech and he has to use something like another Brawl, how does he get there in the end when the actual board states come out of Whispering Wood Soul?
Omenberg Assembly into Ziliax. MC Tech.
MC Tech is not a mech.
No, you can't like attack with it and steal. You steal, then you Ziliax, and
saying,
then you attack, and you've got some taunt, you've got some health.
Fair enough.
If he feels he's in trouble, he may have to just go for this Omenberg Assembly. Something that's kept Hunterace alive in a lot of tournaments this year is the ability to go, okay, I have lost, I'm going to throw the Hail Mary and see what happens.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
If he's going to do it, he's going to do it fairly soon.
All right, going to start with the mind control tech. I think that's one of the best. Does take one of the taunts. Does help him out quite a bit. The question is, how does he keep going? Does he go for this brawl and hope that his own taunt lives? But if you brawl, what is your answer to the next board state?
Yeah.
I can feel the pain right now.
Yeah. He does. Oh, it looked like he's getting the armor, but he's a fickle one.
And how much damage is this? This might just be lethal damage from JustSaiyan. Picks up the branching paths off the top.
And Hunterace looks like JustSaiyan has finally gonna get through. Just gets it done. Finally puts Hunterace out of a tournament at the third time of asking and enters yet another semi-final. That'll be his third semi-final of the year. But this time, Hunterace won't be in his way.
JustSaiyan has finally conquered his arch nemesis in Hunterace, finally defeating him. And I think with that, this may just be Saiyan's tournament.
It may, and I've already said Saiyan now has more Dreamhack win matches than anybody in Dreamhack history. And now he's beaten Hunterace. This is becoming an incredibly good weekend. Amnesiac running.
All right,